Hi everyone, I'm Reena, and this is Resonant Space. So in 2020, I did this challenge that I was going to write music every day, 365 days that year. And, I know on the surface it sounds like, oh my God, this is this awesome challenge, whatever. And I will say that, it was really tough and not always in the right ways. I wouldn't necessarily ever really do it again, but I did learn a lot of really deeply important lessons from it. So one of the things I learned, is that I would have to work a different amount every day if I was going to work for 365 days. And some days were, regular composing days, working for a number of hours, getting really deep into the material. And those felt like, the days that I had before. But then there were some days where I was traveling or I was, had other commitments and I couldn't really work for very long. And so for those days, I gave myself a kind of a floor of like, I just have to engage for 5 minutes in this work. And what that would do is it would give me just enough time to go through my ideas or really look at what was on the page, kind of take it in and get it into my subconscious. And my thought was like, okay, at least it's still in there. Maybe I'm working on it in the background and maybe I'll be able to, then come back to it with some new insights that my subconscious has had while I was away. And this would work for like a day or maybe even 2 days. But at that point, the thing is I was starting to look at the same thing over and over again because I wasn't in a position where I could actually make any changes to it. And it started having the opposite effect, right? The ideas started to get calcified and solidified in my mind in their unformed state. And, the more days I looked at it without changing it, the more I just thought that things went like that and I saw less and less possibilities in it. And that's kind of a recipe for writer's block, right? You're looking at the same thing over and over again and you're not able to figure out how to move forward. And I'll say that this often happens to younger composers who have grown up, listening only to MIDI or working in MIDI settings, where if you listen to the piece over and over again on MIDI without ever changing anything, it's harder for you to write because that's just how you think the piece goes at that point. So, I know it's really hard to quantify progress as a creative person, right? Often at the end of the day, you land up with less music than you had at the beginning of the day, or you end up working on something that's just completely different and unrelated. But for me, I think at its core, really progress feels like looking at something different tomorrow than I've been looking at today. And so, if you're in an experience where you're feeling like things are getting a little calcified, that you're maybe getting into that weird writer's block territory, I encourage you to just look at your score and make some basic changes. They can be cosmetic changes. It can be like just realigning things on the page or putting your ideas in a different order or changing the key of something. Things that are not really hard to do, things that don't require crazy creative energy, but things that just kind of jostle and shake things up, kind of shuffle them around like a deck of cards or something. So the ideas are still there, but then when you return to them the next day, you're just seeing them in a really different state than they were before. And hopefully that shaking up will allow them to decalcify and allow them to, not feel like this solid block anymore, and might allow you to then the following day really get deep into your work and be able to find new possibilities because you're looking at something different the next day than you are today.